everyone, it's Nichol Spohr here today for Simon Says Stamp, and I am sharing a card and matching envelope using the September 2020 card kit called Just Miss You. We're going to be creating this really fun Missing You style card using lots of components from the kit, stamping some of the images from the stamp set included in the kit on pattern papers, and fussy cutting them to complete our little scene. I am trimming down one of the pattern papers from the kit to 4 inches wide to approximately 5 inches long. I want my entire panel to have a border all the way around on my card base, so it's going to measure 4 by 5¼ inches. Then for the cloud border along the bottom edge, I am stamping the cloud border image from the Just Miss You 6x8 clear stamp set included in the kit on one of the other pattern papers. We're going to trim it to 4 inches wide, and I just stamped that with a black ink. This is the Hero Arts Intensified Black ink, and then I am going to fussy cut, leaving a little bit of a border all the way around using some scissors. Now, I am not always a huge fan of fussy cutting, but anything I fussy cut today was pretty easy, and I really love how it looks out of these pattern papers as opposed to cardstock or coloring. And then I'll show you how this is going to work with that awesome rainbow raise paper that we already trimmed down. Isn't that going to be so cute? I have chosen a couple of these sentiments from the Just Miss You stamp set that I'm going to stamp on the background. I've also die cut the Sending Smiles die set. I'm die cutting that from some of the Peacock cardstock included in the kit, and you get this die in the kit, which I think is awesome. And I originally thought I would do the shadow of it because I think it really needs the shadow to stand out against the pattern background from white cardstock, but I didn't particularly love that, so I found a section of one of the pattern papers that's kind of this distressed kind of khaki color, and I actually die cut the shadow from that, and it really kind of keeps with the pattern paper theme of our design. Next, I'm going to kind of line up the stamp phrases that I want to stamp on the background. I will tell you, I'm going to leave in some, I don't want to call them mistakes necessarily, but things that I did that I ended up not loving, and so I will fix them without redoing the card. And one of those things is I am stamping both of the phrases with soft navy Simon Says Stamp ink on the background. And while that works for the phrase, consider this a paper hug, that's going to fit up above our Sending Smiles, it's a lot bolder font, and it also is over a part of the pattern paper background that doesn't have so much going on. The rays are getting wider up at the top, right? So it's a little bit easier to read. I found that the phrase along the bottom that's over more of the busy part, where it's covering a lot more of the rays, was hard to read, even stamped twice with ink. That's okay. This is the only piece of ray paper I had, and I did not want to get rid of that. So I left it for a minute. We'll revisit that here in a little bit. I am wanting to put my adhesive back behind my shadow, but I realized I need to stamp the little guy holding onto the string that's going to form our balloon first. This is another thing that I ended up changing when I get to the end of the card because I don't think he works effectively for this card design. I think those little kind of, I call them stick people because they're not super detailed, even though they're not exactly stick people, but I don't think he works very well for this design. And so I'm actually going to kind of cover him up with an additional cloud. And I wanted to leave that in so you could see how I went about fixing that as well. So we're going to stamp the balloon string with the black ink. I'm also going to go ahead and adhere my cloud border so that it's along the bottom edge of my background and it's hitting that 5¼ inch mark. so that the entire background panel measures 4 by 5¼ inches. And then all along, I plan on at least having one balloon down at the bottom. We're actually going to end up with 2, but let's go ahead and stamp our little guy here first, or the balloon string first, because without stamping that, I can't really lay down my shadow background because it will overlap that a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and move my Misty out of the way. We can take that background we die cut from Sending Smiles, place it between the 2 stamped phrases. And then I want to take the Sending Smiles sentiment that I've die cut from Peacock cardstock, and I actually die cut this 3 times and stack them one on top of another to give a nice bold effect. There's a little heart that fits inside of the letter G, and for that I'm actually going to die cut a red pattern paper. You can see that over to the side, and I die cut it 3 times from white cardstock. The pattern paper is awfully thin, and so I didn't really want that to be my 3rd and final layer. We're going to stack up the cardstock hearts first and finish with the little heart. But first, let's get our Sending Smiles in place. I'm using a fine tip applicator on the Ranger Multi-Matte Medium, which allows me to put a nice little thin line of glue on this delicate die cut. This die cut is a fantastic addition to your die cut sentiments. I love a good die cut sentiment, and this is awesome. Works so well with any of the sentiments in the Just Miss You stamp set. And then we're going to glue that to the center of our shadow between those 2 stamped phrases. And I love how the Peacock cardstock pulls out that teal color from one of those ray backgrounds. I liked the sentiment out of cardstock as opposed to a pattern paper because I think the lines of this are so skinny and delicate that it wouldn't translate or show up as well, I didn't feel like. And so I let the shadow be a pattern that has some of those great like little water droplets, that distressing on it, and then the sentiment is out of cardstock. Here is that little heart that I was talking about, where I'm stacking the 3 cardstock hearts one on top of another and finishing with my pattern paper heart on top. I am using an embellishment wand that I already had in my stash, but keep in mind you are getting a jewel picker, which does the same thing, included in your kit this month. So that is awesome, and it's fantastic for picking up those little bits and pieces. Let's add a pattern paper balloon heart to our card. I'm stamping that on some of the red pattern paper from the kit, and we're going to fussy cut that heart with our scissors, just like we did the cloud border. I'm going to leave a thin red border all the way around this heart. And I find it easier when I'm fussy cutting to trim down the size that I am cutting, trim down the paper. So I didn't keep the whole sheet of paper there. I just trimmed a little square and then went ahead and cut my heart. Then we can adhere this heart to the top of our card to that balloon string. Look how cute that is. I love how it pulls out some of the red from the rainbow rays. I'll go ahead and adhere that to my background. Originally, I had thought that I would color in the little guy there. I did not want to fussy cut him from cardstock. I didn't think that would show up very well. I did color him in. I did not like how that turned out. It's not terrible, it just didn't feel like it went with my card very well. We'll go ahead and stamp and fussy cut the individual cloud here in a bit, but I did go ahead and stamp 2 additional hearts from 2 other patterns included in the kit. We're stamping the balloon strings along the bottom edge of the card, and then we're going to glue those hearts in place, kind of overlapping along the bottom edge. And I love the addition of these 2 extra patterns. I'm adding little white highlights to the balloon with a white pin. I already added one to the red balloon, and I think that makes such a nice little effect there. And I think it's really evident how hard I think that sentiment, the smaller sentiment along the bottom edge, is to read. I went ahead and stamped that on some of the Peacock cardstock with clear embossing ink and heat embossed with white embossing powder, and die cut that with one of my favorite Simon Says Stamp Sentiment Labels dies. I'm placing double-sided adhesive on the back, and then we're going to simply glue this in place over the image we stamped on the background. It makes a world of difference. So much more legible to read. The teal ties into the teal of Sending Smiles, the teal of the balloon, the teal of the sun rays. This little cloud here, I only did one, and we're going to stretch it to make 2 clouds. So it's going to be tucked underneath the shadow of Sending Smiles, and then we're going to trim off that excess just off of the edge, and this is a good time to trim off the excess heart balloon along the top. And then we're going to take the other half of the balloon, flip it over, and place it on the other side. This gives us a nice trio of clouds. So kind of right side, left side, and down along the bottom edge gives you that nice visual triangle look, as well as the balloons give you a nice visual triangle as well. We're going to add a little highlight to the heart in the G in the word sending, and adhere our card base down onto a white top fold card. And there is our Sending Smiles card all finished. I didn't want to stop here, however, and I'm going to create a coordinating envelope that matches my card. First, we're going to take stamps from the Just Miss You stamp set and stamp them along the flap of the white card, or white envelope, pardon me, that comes in this month's kit. So first, let's stamp the Sending Happy Thoughts greeting, but I want it to be two-tone. I want to get as much color as I can that coordinates back to our card. So we're going to use a little bit of Post-it notes to mask off parts of the sentiment so we can stamp the word sending first with Simon Says Stamp watermelon ink. I like to use Post-it notes because they're easy, and usually we all have lots of those available, and they're not so super sticky like maybe purple tape is. And so I find they work really easily to just kind of rip them off real quick after you use them to mask, and then go ahead and stamp. After that, I'm going to clean my stamp, mask off the word sending now, and we're going to stamp Happy Thoughts with the soft navy ink that we used on our card. And that's going to just be right underneath the word sending. And that gives us a two-tone greeting. We'll go ahead and remove this, and then I'm going to use like the little dashed line with the 2 hearts at the end from the stamp set. I love this. And we're going to ink up the hearts first. I didn't do any masking. I'm just going to ink those up with Audrey Blue ink. I think the Audrey Blue ink ties back nicely to the Peacock cardstock and the teal colors from the card base. And I'm going to just ink those up. I didn't worry if any of the little dashed line got the blue on it because we are going to be stamping that with soft navy. I think I was able to kind of avoid that, maybe just a little touch there. Clean off our hearts, and then I'm going to just tear a Post-it in half, mask off the hearts, and ink up the little dashed line with soft navy ink and stamp that underneath. And that is going to give us a beautiful decorative back flap for our envelope. One final thing is I'm going to take the Simon Says Stamp envelope liner die, and we're going to die cut a liner from one of the other pattern papers from the kit that we can then tuck inside our envelope, which I love. When the recipient opens up the envelope, it's going to have this beautiful little house decorative pattern paper liner, which hides the fact that the ink, you can see it kind of leaked through the flap on the envelope a little bit. It hides that. Plus it gives you something so super pretty. I'm going to tuck it down inside, and I only attach along the top edge, so I'm just going to fold the flap over to pick that up, and look how pretty that is. It's easy to tuck your card inside the envelope, and when the recipient gets it and they open up their envelope, it has a beautiful liner that matches. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for this card and envelope featuring the September 2020 card kit called Just Miss You. Please visit the Simon Says Stamp blog for more information. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.